John, is it a half day at Depop? Is that what you said?
Yeah, everybody clocked off about 3 hours ago.
Nice. What's the occasion?
We have half days on every fortnight on Fridays for sort of like lockdown mental health kind of things, so people can chill out a little bit. It's quite good.
That is nice. Actually, at Envision, they tell us to leave at lunch at Friday every day, like every week, and about a quarter of the people do. But I think it's good. A lot of people go out and actually have family time.
Yeah, it's nice.
Very cool. I see Pedro is here as well. Maggie is here. So we've got our amazing speaker lineup all here. Perfect. This is going to be a super tight town hall. I have been warning all the speakers that I'm going to be keeping us all on time because we have a ton of stuff to go through. So welcome everyone. This is the April, I mean, we're doing it after like 5 weeks because I wanted to align it to the 4th Friday of the month going forward. So we have 5 weeks of stuff to catch up on, and it's quite a lot. Our community has grown quite a bit over the last month. I think I was just, eyeballing the numbers in terms of the community. I think we added like another 20%, 25% in the last month. So amazing. And I think engagement has been off the chart. So really enjoying kind of the conversations, whether it is small stuff like someone's Docker image not really working for them, and the big stuff like, tags and taxonomies and ontologies, and how do we keep it all together? So keep it coming. Love the energy. Awesome. So agenda today, quick project updates. We're going to have Gary talk about DBT integration. Pedro is talking about DataHub at DefinedCrowd. If Harshal and Gabe are awake, they're going to do a deep dive and a demo on Lineage. They're working pretty late last night getting it all together. And then John is going to tell us about the hackathon that they did with DataHub at Depop. And last time we did an observability a share out with mocks and got some community feedback. I'll kind of share out what happened as a result. And Maggie has some announcements around a design sprint that she is running. So super exciting. Awesome. So around midnight, I cut the release. So we have a brand new release, 071. It's been like 5 weeks. We're trying to go to a monthly cadence. So pretty much every month you should expect official release coming out. We had almost 140 commits in the last 5 weeks, I think. So our commit rate is actually going up, which is awesome to see. I also pulled like the number of committers and the diversity. That's looking really nice. We had actually 12 different companies contributing to the project over the last 5 weeks. So that's great. And in terms of highlights, I was trying to bucketize where all the features are coming in and where all the contributions are. Obviously product improvements is a big one. Then there's operator tools and then integrations. So product improvements, quick highlights. We've got column level matching going on. So if you search for something and if it hits a column, we show it now, and you can kind of figure out that that's happened. There's some stuff we did around, improving search suggestions on the first page as well. And then pipelines are in, and you can search for them either as a top level thing, and you'll get kind of the all result with pipelines also included along with dashboards and data sets. Editable descriptions. So this was another common feature request. If you have a description on a column and you want to just edit it, we support editing it, and we actually keep it separate from the primary schema description, so you can always have that as well. And there's some discussions around how we're going to improve the UX to make it even more nice for conflict resolution. Nested schemas for people who run Avro, Protobuf, and that kind of stuff. You see this all the time. So we've now have better tabular view for nested schemas as well. So you can kind of expand and shrink those structs. Moving towards operator updates, the DataHub CLI is getting better. So it started out with just ingestion, right? So everyone knows that now, DataHub, ingest, blah, blah, blah. And now we're starting to add other verbs to it, like check. So you can start checking the health of your cluster or the health of your local Docker installation using DataHub. And a lot more metadata ops. We have a lot of ideas, and if people have ideas, definitely send them over. It's a fantastic place to hack on. What are the amazing things you want to do on the command line with DataHub? And we can kind of keep expanding that. Big news, we finally mainlined our Helm charts. So Kubernetes Helm, it's production ready. We're using it for our AWS deployments. So we can support you on that. A bunch of work was done by the community in adding monitoring. I think DefinedCrowd worked on that. LinkedIn actually contributed some Neo4j writer improvements because when they were doing backfills and stuff, they found a bunch of bottlenecks in the Neo4j integration. So that Neo4j integration should be going faster now. And I think Klarna worked on adding SSL everywhere. So that's great news. On the integration side, as usual, lots of contributions. So this is great. We now have Airflow Lineage. Harshal is gonna get into that later today. We also have an official Python package, so you can pip install stuff and get it on your devices and then start hacking on DataHub. Integrations include, Airflow, DBT, Superset, Druid, Snowflake, better Snowflake. We had Snowflake last time, but we improved it this time. Glue, thanks to the Depop team for that, and MongoDB and Oracle. Looker, Spot Hero actually contributed it. It's still in the contrib folder because we want to go back and improve it and make it an official using the new ingestion framework. So lots of new integrations this time around, and we're looking to continuously add more logos. Awesome. So I'll hand it over to Gary, who in a hackathon, I think, at Envision, kind of popped up and said, hey, I'd like to work on DBT. And we were like, yeah, go for it. It's on our roadmap, but we didn't have time for it. So Gary, take it away.
Hi, my name is Gary. I'm a staff data engineer in Envision app, and as Shirshanka mentioned, this is a result of a hackathon. When I was done, I decided that I wanted to contribute this work to DataHub. So, quick overview. DBT is a directed acyclic graph for SQL. It lets analysts and scientists create workflows in SQL. It's really easy to use. It's easy to learn. It's really just SQL. So what I want to do is I wanted to import the DBT generated graph for lineage information, as well as some specific metadata, such as the model name and the hierarchy within the DBT models folder. So I often find it's a challenge to map what I see in SQL versus what is actually executing the DBT folder. Some people can do it in their head. I find that to be a challenge. And as well as the model type. So source, if it's a source, if it's a model, if it's a viewer, if it's ephemeral. Future iterations may involve pulling in model documentation and additional tags and anything else the community finds helpful. So
one question I had for Gary when he was starting out was, DBT already has lineage and it also already has some cool visualizations. So what's interesting about integrating it with DataHub? And I thought he had a pretty good answer to that.
Well, I think the straightforward answer is, if you're using DBT docs generate, that's a great tool. If all of your assets are computed in DBT and all those assets feed into DBT in some way, it works fine. But most organizations don't actually have that situation, so there's going to be things that exist outside of that. DBT docs shows the universe for DBT. DataHub is intended to solve the greater ecosystem. Does that make sense?
Yep. Cool. So this is what it looks like once you get it all integrated. I think Gary even checked in one of those files in the repo, right?
Yeah.
Cool. And this is yours again.
Yeah. So in terms of how do I use this integration, you run DBT in a regular pipeline. It executes, creates the SQL SQL assets or the data assets in your data store. The output of that is going to be a manifest file, which is in the /targets folder of your DBT project. And then to pull in schema data and some other metadata, you can run dbt docs generate, and that actually generates this catalog JSON file. You reference those, you run the metadata ingestion tool, and then you have that stuff in your system.
Cool. And just today morning, I think someone on the community channel was asking about, how DBT connects to Snowflake, and then, doing Snowflake ingestion and DBT ingestion, and the IDs are not quite lining up. So I think there's some very interesting work left to do in stitching together the DBT graph with the rest of the catalogs. But I think it should be pretty easy to do it. And then I think we can kind of get that whole end-to-end lineage flow that we all dream about. Awesome. Thanks, Gary. All right. The next presenter is Pedro, and he's going to talk about DataHub at DefinedCrowd. Pedro, you want to
can I
take over?
All right, great. Thank you. Give me a couple seconds. All right. You guys can see my screen, right?
Yep.
All right, perfect. So first of all, thank you so much, Shirshanka, for giving me the possibility to present the work that we have been doing at DefinedCrowd with DataHub. For everyone else, my name is Pedro Silva. I'm a data engineer at DefinedCrowd. So first of all, let me just very briefly explain to you what the company is. Essentially, we are a marketplace for AI data, and our objective is to make your AI use cases smarter. And the way that we do that is by crowdsourcing data assets specific to your use case and to your industry as a service with certain quality guarantees. These can be things like speech to text, translations, audio, or even image recognition type data assets. Regarding the company, we were founded in 2015. We have over 300 employees, and through our Series A and Series B funding, we have over $63 million already raised. Important to mention in this talk is that one of the ways, or the way in which we crowdsource data sets is through our Nevo platform. This is essentially a mobile application for Android or iPhone, where regular users can download the app and earn a little bit of money by performing certain tasks. These tasks are what we call as units of work. And to give you a sense of the statistics and the scale with which we work, it's over 1 million units processed per day with 500,000 or more crowd members and growing over 70 countries and speaking more than 50 languages. And the reason that this is important is to give you a little bit of context with regards to the data ecosystem that we have at DefinedCrowd. Essentially, it's an event-based data lake-like system managed by a centralized and specialized data engineering team. And the purpose is for reports generation, dashboards for the multiple teams that are allocated to certain projects, and also to help perform our internal quality control over the crowdsourced data assets. Regarding the architecture itself, what we have is Nevo generates certain metadata events. So let's suppose that a certain unit of work has been assigned to a user. He has been working on it, so you have progress over time. It can be canceled, it can be completed, these sort of things. So a sort of state machine of events based on multiple aspects of the platform is the input or is the source of data for our platform. This is then retrieved from a Kafka log storage where we can perform a number of things. One of which is through KSQL perform streaming joins. And the reason that we want this is to have a real-time computed view over certain data views, if you will, on our data. And that is stored back into Kafka, which through Kafka Connect, we store in HDFS. Internally at DefinedCrowd, we use, or our cloud is Azure, and we do use certain managed services, including, for instance, Azure Data Factory, which is Azure's managed offering of something like Airflow. It's their own interpretation of that. We also have the typical ETL batch-like processing, in this case through Spark, where we take raw data and process our Kafka topics into usually views that are more consumable for our stakeholders. And these views can either be consumed via Druid or via Hive. The use case here is in Druid, we want to work with more real-time queries and an SQL-like approach. But in Hive, through DataHub, for those cases, for example, data scientists, where they want to perform actual manipulations on the data and they want to perhaps do some data cleaning and feature engineering for our internal machine learning models. So in a very high level overview, this is what we have for a data ecosystem. This is not everything, but it's what I feel is relevant to this conversation right now. And as you can tell, this is a very centralized like approach, and the whole architecture itself is owned and managed by the data engineering team. Our vision is to move towards a more data mesh like approach, which certainly has some benefits. For us, concretely, what we want is to achieve three things: data democratization, so allowing data-driven decision-making without bottlenecks or external dependencies by our stakeholders. These can be people like project managers, business analysts, so on and so forth, or even C-level decisions. We want them to be able to make those decisions based on data, but not being dependent on the team. And the reason being is that the scale of the team. The people who manage this infrastructure, we are around 6 people. This changes over time because we have people being allocated into different projects. But our fan out ratio, if you will, is 6 to 80. So if you want to reduce this, I think it's something like 1 to 12. That's sort of how it works. And given this scale, we naturally want our users to be more self-serviceable. So to do that, we need to provide intuitive tooling for them to be autonomous. And finally, this will allow then the data engineering team to scale up and be able to work on other challenges. Speaking of intuitive tooling, that's where DataHub itself comes in, right? Self-serviceability is something that's not really possible without having data discovery and data lineage over the assets that we have. And even for the data team, for us, we do increasingly have a harder time keeping up with the growth of data assets. Given that the company itself is a data provider, our asset catalog is continuously growing. And for 6 people, it's a lot of information for us to handle. So we needed a data catalog. From an exploration of the current ecosystem perspective, we explored options like WeWorks Marquez, Apache Atlas, Lyft, and Newton, mainly because they're open source solutions, and we wanted to understand and wanted to be able to contribute back in case their approach was not perfectly fit to the DefinedCrowd use case. Though we did also look to inspiration at companies like Netflix and Intuit that had other approaches. In the end, though, we did decide to go to DataHub. The reason being its extremely active community, the ability to have strongly typed dynamic metadata models, so being able to define certain entities, relationships, and being able to modify that, if possible, to make it match our use case. And finally, a push and pull ingestion model for the metadata, because we do have certain components of our architecture which are streaming based and others are batch based. Possibly some will be created by us internally, and having that flexibility is very important to us. To give you a sense of where we are right now, we've undergone the exploration, proof of concept based deployment. We are now at a production level deployment, though with a very basic use case. In this scenario, dataset catalogs only, and on our downstream databases, Druid and Hive. And the reason why we wanted to do this is to ensure that our direct stakeholders had access to information that they could understand. If they work with Superset and DataHub, they are directly interacting with data that's available and queryable in Druid and Hive. This was a work that involved 3 people, and overall, it was an extremely positive experience. Our initial rollout had over 20 plus data users, and their feedback has been quite good. Though at this time, because of a lack of metrics, I can't really tell you if this number has changed over time, but it is the information that we have right now. But finally, DataHub as a system, it is relatively complex, right? It's a largish database with a lot of moving parts, but the community support has been exceptional. So in that sense, I feel it has been an excellent choice on our part. Regarding contributions, and I know Shirshanka already mentioned this, we did contribute with some things, particularly monitoring metrics, crawling support for metadata, all of this done in Kubernetes, because that is our default deployment mode, and finally support for Druid. Though it is not the end of contributions, I hope, but we will see as time moves on. So just to give you a sense, this is the ecosystem that we had before, and this is what we have additionally with DataHub, right? You have your DataHub UI, your installation. This is all done in Kubernetes. Then through the DataHub metadata crawlers and the cron jobs, we query Hive and Druid. And finally, with regards to opportunities, we feel naturally there are things to improve. There always are in good projects. And in our case, for our use case, it's dynamic metadata models. It is true that these models are flexible and that you can change. However, they are hard-coded into the database in the sense that if we wanted to change, we needed to maintain a fork of the project continuously and from time to time merge things from the original repository to gain all the niceties and all the features that have been released. And the reason we want to do this is not all our data stakeholders are tech savvy, right? Some of them come from linguistics backgrounds with little to no CS training, and for them, semantics matters. For instance, quality control at DefinedCrowd for translation use cases involves having people who are naturally linguists, and they do not have CS training, and as such, we need to make their usability of this tool as intuitive as possible. Other things include role-based access control. So having granular entity level access definitions is something that I feel is quite important. So being able to say that a given data user has access to data sets A, B, and C, but not D, E, and F. This is something that is very relevant to us. And finally, field level lineage based on jobs and pipelines. So because we have certain data sets, or in a sense, certain views, where a subset of those columns are generated by job A and the others are by job B, this is the sort of information that we want to make sure we surface correctly. Though I do have to mention that all of this is already in DataHub's backlog. So I don't think that I'm saying anything new here, Shirshanka, but it's just what we at DefinedCrowd would like to see in the future. And yeah, I guess that's it. I don't know if anyone has any questions. I do apologize if I sped through this presentation, but give me your feedback if you have any. Thank you so much.
Cool. Thanks a lot, Pedro. Definitely +1 on all the pain you felt with some of those things, especially the metadata models. We feel it every time we add one small thing to it. So yeah. No code metadata models are absolutely top of mind for us and are back also on the roadmap. Field level lineage also, we've got the RFC in, and so we'll figure out the implementation pretty soon. I had one question for you, Pedro, and then we can do some quick questions from the community. You currently have DataHub kind of crawling your Druid and Hive clusters. You also have some Kafka Connect in your ecosystem.
Yes.
Do you anticipate kind of pushing metadata from that streaming ecosystem into DataHub in the future?
Ideally, yes. I do feel that Kafka Connect's integration is more on the level of Lineage than generating metadata assets themselves. So right now, as I understand it, the ingestion framework will generate data set snapshots and possibly even user information for LDAP systems. I feel that it needs to be adapted to be able to provide these sort of connections or updates to aspects of metadata, right? Kafka Connect feels very much like a source of that type of metadata. And at the ingestion framework level, we don't yet have that, as far as I know. But yes, if
Yeah,
we
I
do
think
have it, it'd be definitely a plus one.
agreed. I think especially the way in which we've done the Airflow Lineage integration, we can probably use the same strategy for Kafka Connect, where there's like framework level integration with Kafka Connect. And when those pipelines start up, they emit metadata events that then connect the edges together. So that I think would be great for the community as well. Are there any other questions? We have a minute. You can always drop questions if you have them offline on the chat, and I'll try to get back to them towards the end.
Right.
Cool. Thanks a lot, Pedro.
No
and
worries.
best of luck.
All right. Thank you so much.
All right. So for our next piece, we have Harshal and Gabe from Acral Data, who are going to be talking about Airflow Lineage and integration with Superset.
Awesome. Thanks,
Gabe?
Shirshanka.
Okay, cool. Let me hit present.
Cool, perfect. Thanks. Yeah, so me and Gabe are going to be talking about how we built deeper integrations with Airflow, and then how we set up a larger demo environment to build a full data analytics pipeline end to end and view it and understand it with DataHub. So first, I'm going to talk a little bit about the couple ways that you can integrate DataHub with Airflow. The first is, pretty simple, using Airflow essentially as a cron system to just run ingestion on a schedule. So, similar to how you define a recipe with the DataHub CLI, you can create a pipeline, give it your source, tell it to push to GMS via the DataHub REST sync, and just run it every day. And it's pretty simple to do this and set it up with Airflow. The second method, if you hit next slide, the second method is to emit MCEs via a DataHub operator directly within your DAG. So the reason you might want to use this is if you've got, say, you're generating a DAG and you know exactly what lineage or some extra information about a given data set, you can just create that MCE here, construct that object, and push it up to DataHub and to tell DataHub about whatever you know within that Airflow DAG. Now, in order to use this, you have to set up an Airflow connection. This is a pretty standard thing. And then you just put the connection ID in the operator as a parameter, and Airflow will figure out the rest of how to pass the credentials into the emitter operator, and then push that information all to DataHub. Now, a third way to integrate Airflow and DataHub, and the one that I'm most excited about, is via the Lineage backend. So the way this works is you set up a little bit in your Airflow config. If you see that second screenshot, you configure the DataHub Airflow Lineage backend as the Lineage backend within Airflow, and give it the connection ID, similar to how we did it in the operator case. And then in your operators within your DAG, you pass inlets and outlets. And this is a Airflow native integration. Every single operator supports inlets and outlets in the right versions of Airflow. And you just declare your data sets that are consumed and produced by a given job. And DataHub is able to view and visualize all of that metadata. Plus, it fetches a bunch of extra metadata about the DAG and the tasks itself. So you can view properties about, what were parameters that were passed into the task, or, when was this thing last run? Now, the one caveat here is, it requires a little bit of config, and it only works with Airflow 1.10.15 or newer, or 2.0.2 or newer, because the Lineage backend was not supported prior to those versions. And so there you have it. If you want to learn more, Shirshanka, if you hit the next slide, we've got a link to the docs where you can read about it. And then I'm on Slack if you have any other questions.
Awesome.
And
Thanks,
that, I'll
Harshal.
pass it over to Gabe.
Sweet. Awesome. Thanks for sharing, Harshal. I think it's really cool how it's nice that we've got different options of integrating with Airflow. So depending on how much commitment, how deep they want to get in, there's always a way someone can get this lineage information. So next up, I'm going to talk about how users of DataHub can take advantage of these connections that we have between entities to get a better understanding of the data that they have. So I know that Harshal, in his spare time, made some analytics pipelines and dashboards about the demo data that we have for demo datahubproject.io. We have lots of data sets there, and as a little pet project, he built some pipelines to and some dashboards to visualize metadata about them. And I'm going to go through and explore this and understand what he's built and use Lineage to get a better understanding and more trust in the data. So say I wanted to understand what the documentation coverage is for our demo data so that I could understand, well, what platforms do I need to improve the documentation for? So I can go into the search bar and search for documentation. And I see a superset chart that has been created that gets the completeness of documentation for some data sets. And I can click into that. In our superset integration that's been included in the new release, you can go and see some basic properties like the metrics and the dimensions of the chart, as well as the sources that feed into that chart. But how do I know that these data sets that are being talked about in the chart are the data sets that I'm interested in and actually are our demo? This is when I'm going to need to go into the lineage view to see the whole picture of how this chart was created. So when I click this button in the top right of my entity, I get taken to a graphical view that shows in the center, this is the chart that we're talking about. It also shows the upstream table dependency that the chart is reading from. And this is what we saw before. Downstream, I can also see the dashboard that the chart's included in. And these lines that I'm seeing coming out of the dashboard are indicating that this dashboard contains other metadata analytics charts. So I might make a mental note that if this chart is what I'm looking for, I might want to go investigate this dashboard and see what other charts it has. And if I double click on this dashboard, I can recenter the graph around it and see here are all the other charts that are contained in that dashboard and these charts that I might want to investigate later. And so going back to this upstream table, I can click on it, get the full name. If there was description or other metadata like tags, I would be able to see that as well. But all I know is this is some generated snowflake table in Harshal's pipeline. How do I actually know that this table is generated off of the data that I'm expecting and the dimensions are constructed in a way that I want? At this point, I'm going to hit this plus icon to further expand out the lineage graph. So as I hit these pluses, the lineage graph is expanded out and I can see more and more of the dependencies of these tables. Until finally, once all the pluses have been clicked, I now have a full picture. And as I zoom out, I can see a full picture of all the flow of the lineage that leads to my dashboard. Zooming in, I can see it all starts with this S3 bucket that is a snapshot of our demo aspects. And for people familiar with
Gabe, I think everyone
DataHub's,
wants to just see that waterfall, man. Can you just,
sure.
like, just please wait for a minute.
Yeah, so again,
This is
here
so
is
cool.
the waterfall of our dependencies.
And this is like metadata analytics, right? So it's analytics on the metadata itself.
Exactly. So what we've done here is built a pipeline around the metadata included in our demo DataHub project. So as you can see from the flow from left to right, we're starting with the raw data of the aspect. And then Harshal has created pipelines to produce derived tables off of these aspects so that they're easier to consume until finally we have the table that all the superset charts read from, which is a much more consolidated version of our data metadata that charts can easily be built off of. So now, after looking at this lineage visualization, I feel much more confident that this data that is feeding into the charts is in fact the data that I'm looking for, because I can see from the beginning it is built off of these core aspect tables that I understand. And if I want to zoom in, and I can then inspect an Airflow task and say, I might want to know, okay, so I know now that the source data and the flow of data seems expected, but how do I know the transformations that Harshal has done are the transformations that I would want? I can then click view profile of this Airflow task that I've highlighted, and I'm brought to the Airflow tasks profile. We ingest a lot of properties about these Airflow tasks, but also you'll have a link to your Airflow task and the actual in the Airflow UI. When I click on that, I'm brought to Airflow and I can actually go in, inspect the code, and verify that this code is what I'm expecting, and the transformations that Harshal's done are the transformations that I expect. Going back to our lineage graph, now that I've been able to do my due diligence on the lineage flow, understanding from the beginning all the way down to my chart, how is this data transformed? I can now finally look at this, go back to the chart profile, click out to my view and superset button. And now I finally have confidence that this chart I'm looking at, doesn't just say it's doing data set document completeness, but I understand from the beginning through the transformations all the way to the chart, this is what I expect.
We got to improve Snowflake documentation. That much is clear.
Yeah, that's right. It looks like the Snowflake documentation is lacking and S3 is barely there, but our BigQuery documentation and our Kafka documentation is looking pretty good. So now I know next week I've got my work cut out for me. And I can now go into my other charts, do investigations there, and draw more conclusions. So now in the new release, now that we have Airflow integration, we have DBT, Superset, Looker, and other sources that are helping tie your different entities together. These lineage visualizations will help you understand how all your data relates to each other. And with that, this concludes our walkthrough of the lineage feature.
Awesome,
Back to you,
awesome.
Shirshanka.
I think people are just blown away. So huge kudos to the two of you for cranking it out yesterday and getting it to this polished state. This is really cool. This is really cool. Awesome. Cool. Let's move to the next section. 1 second while I go find my tab. Yep, here we are. And oh, another handoff. We have John, who's going to talk to us about the DataHub hackathon that the Depop guys did. It was pretty cool to see them literally pop in to the community channel and say, hey, we're doing a hackathon. And in a few days, they were contributing Glue integration back to us, and the Klarna folks helped them out. So thanks for that collab. I think it was really nice to see that happen. Take it away, John.
Can you see my screen well?
Yep.
Awesome. Yeah, a bit of a tough one to follow, that one. That looked really good. So I hope I don't disappoint you here. But anyway, my name's John. I'm the lead data engineer here at Depop. And yeah, here to talk about the hackathon that we did with the DataHub. So just quick intro about Depop. and who we are. We're a fashion marketplace for the next generation to buy and sell, discover unique fashion. So we're an app. Basically, we provide the ability to sell predominantly second-hand fashion and sustainable fashion. You can think of us a bit like eBay mixed with Instagram. That's what I told my mum anyway when I joined. Yeah, lots of people in the UK using Depop, and it's growing around the world as well as the US too. Yeah, and we're growing very fast, and our data needs are growing well too. So why did we look at the DataHub? Well, we need to enable the business to use data in a self-serve fashion, and we need a single location for all of our data needs. Shout out to the design crew who did that. It certainly wasn't me. So I'm going to walk us through some of the problems that we're trying to solve here that we can see through various Slack messages that we've had through the company. So we've got issues with data discovery. Somebody new joins and they want to know about data for our CRM, and they don't really know where to find it, which is a bit of a shame. We want to know data about recently viewed items, or any data about banning people in the Trust platform, and we don't have that single location for search, so the DataHub would be pretty useful there. The data lineage aspect, I don't really need to speak about this, as have you seen a perfect demonstration of how that works, but generally producers and consumers, and seeing where data starts and where it ends up all the way through to our Looker instance would be very useful for our business users. And Depop's a startup or a scale up, and we've got lots of knowledge in our heads when we're in the sort of documentation phase. So the tribal knowledge is pretty rife, and this table has a column called active status, which over the years has baffled many people in the business, including this guy who said active status could just about mean anything. So documentation is pretty important for our users. So what we did is we had a hackathon in the data engineering team and the BI team as well, and we split up and we tried to have a sort of a head-to-head against Amundsen and DataHub, and so we did. What did we try and do? Well, both of them have local setups that use Docker, and we tried to go from zero knowledge of these products to getting as much production data into them as we could do inside 2 days. So I will just change the screen, and I'm going to only show the demo part for the DataHub, obviously. This is what we managed to do, and then I'll slip back in afterwards. So I'll start now. I might need to reshare my screen actually. 2 seconds. Here we go. Is it playing? Oh no, that's a nightmare. No worries. I'll quickly refresh it.
We just see our desktop, John.
Oh, that's good. Are you enjoying the mess? Sorry. We are having a bit.
We can see it now. We can see it now.
That's good.
But DataHub didn't have any glue support, so we spent the last 2 days figuring out how we could ingest data from glue into DataHub, and we managed to do it, so that's good. So if you look in data sets, we have this glue here, and then this then goes to a database level. So for example, if we just click in random on like data lake compacted, here's all of the tables that are in there. If you search for product create and then go to the one in compacted, So yeah, this has the search as well. So for example, you can have, say we added a description here. Most of our data isn't really well documented, doesn't have descriptions. But in the schemas, for example, in Glue, you can have descriptions for each field. I know there's often confusion about like what a user ID actually is it the seller, da, 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 da. So all that can be documented. Got the name of each field, the type on the left, the descriptions. So that's the schemas. There's also ownership that we could pull out. All of ours are apparently owned by owner, so that's not that helpful, but that can be changed. And then properties has just properties about the table that get pulled out. So just extra information in there. And then you have the option that adds documents, but we didn't have any for any of those. But yeah, I think we're going to open a PR in the DataHub repo for the Glue support. And that's pretty much it. I don't know if I missed anything.
That's cool. Thanks. Laurent, do you want to show the Looker integration?
Yeah, sure. So basically our team, Rob, Abby, and myself, we worked on integrating the Redshift tables and Looker. So as similar to the Glue schemas, you know, the Redshift tables, it basically pulled the tables from Redshift, and it has, again, the schema, types, names of fields. We also have ownership and all of that, so that's existent. Obviously, we've implemented on the field, and obviously tags. Similar to Monster, I think, in terms of the like search, if I search for a keyword here, I am able to see the all the entities that have this particular tag, and I can again do that the opposite way by going to the tag and then look up, you know, everything that has this tag. I think similarly, if I look for another keyword here, I want to see, well, in this case, for example, it appears in the table name, but in this case, there's a match for a column name. So it's really interesting to see that the search is very inclusive. For the Looker implementation, so there's another area here that we enabled to integrate a particular dashboard here with a description. If I scroll in, I'm able to see the obviously tags and owners and everything can be added. I'm able to see the actual looks that are part of this dashboard. In this case, we just provided a few examples, but so if I scroll to one of them, I'm able to first of all see tags. I'm able to see the actual table, so the data source for this particular look in Looker, and obviously scrolling and see that information. I don't want to get out, but yeah, there's a direct link to the look, so that's really nice. What I think I've covered most of it here.
If you check confirm signups, you can see documentation on Lineage. Yeah.
Yeah. So yeah, this is a Redshift table, and any documentation, let's say it's an ETL based or any logic that is part of that creation of the table, you're able to see that, and each entity here, you're able to see the upstream and downstream dependencies. So that's very useful for data lineage.
Cool. So that's the majority of our demo. There's some FAQs afterwards, but we were presenting to the business, so I won't show you those. So yeah, what we achieved during the hackathon is we ingested all of our production data into the local instances. So that was Redshift, Glue, and Kafka. They all came into our local instance of the DataHub. We also linked that chart of Looker in, and we created we used the metadata change events to create lineage and tags and documentation and owners. And we created a merge the pull request, which was pretty nice. So I think that the most important thing for us, and probably for any advice I could give people who are here who haven't decided yet, is why we actually picked the DataHub. Most of the problems we had with Amundsen was the lack of Kafka support. And when we tried to integrate that with DataHub, it just worked straight away. And as you can see, we added the Glue integration, which was really easy. And the process for adding a new ingestion type was super easy. It was very straightforward. The docs were set up nicely. And I think Pedro said it earlier, the support from the team was just immense. It was amazing. We were messaging at all times and we were getting responses, and pushing that PR was really trivial, and thanks to Klarna for helping us out there as well. Yeah, the aspect of data lineage is really important for us because we have several layers of transformations on a business level, and Amundsen didn't really support that very well. Looker was a work in progress, and I know you said it was in the contrib folder at the minute, but we're really excited to see that. And just all of the other bits that you've seen already, it was just super good, and we had a really good time doing it and contributing back. And we're looking forward to integrating into our production stack in the next couple of months. So yeah, thank you very much for your help. I'm really pleased to be working with you, and it's been an absolute pleasure. Yeah, and shout out to the team. I think Maria's here. Hey, Maria. Thank you very much.
Thanks, John. Yeah, we really enjoyed all the energy that the Depop team brought into the project. So keep that coming. Awesome. So now that we have just a few minutes left, I wanted to do one of the things that we had promised we would do for the community. And that's a share out of the observability mocks and the poll that we ran last time. Present. Everyone can see my screen, right? Okay. So, you know, in the last town hall, we went through a couple of screens showing, hey, this is what DataHub could look like if we added observability metadata to it, and then started building kind of data quality style visualization, as well as data ops style visualization to the screens. And we got a ton of feedback, thanks to everyone who participated, about what they want to see and what direction they want the project to go. We actually got more than 25 responses. So really happy to get that kind of high quality feedback from the community. The first thing we asked people was, what is their role? And so what is very nice to see is that DataHub seems to be very aligned with the interests of the data platform leads and the data engineers, who are trying to ensure that they have like a modern data catalog with the architectural strengths of DataHub. We also see a lot of PMs and architects in our community who are also trying to think about a sustainable data strategy for their company. And so those kind of roles are definitely showing up at the very top. In terms of pain points, it was clear that what we are all trying to look for is make consumers understand the quality of data that they're consuming and have data producers take ownership of data quality issues. And that starts with freshness, but also data quality checks and alerts. So being able to understand end to end, I mean, the lineage features will definitely help in making all of that transparent. But then on top of this lineage graph, now adding observability or operational metrics so that you can understand end-to-end quality integrations with tools like Great Expectations and enabling alerting based on these metrics. These definitely seem to be popping up at the very top of the people we surveyed from the community. The next thing we asked was feedback, like, should we do this or should we not? And overwhelmingly, people said, this looks amazing and we should just work on it. So it seems like the community definitely is voting for these things to be in the product. And the nice thing was, right after that, we asked people, how will you help? And I'm so glad to say that the number 1 and 2 results on those are, I will storyboard the use cases and I'll contribute to building out the backend. So that's exactly what we want. We will set up time with all of you to storyboard together and figure out how to even run the project if people are interested in actually working on this together. So last night, I actually created this Slack channel. It's called Design Data Quality. It's empty, but everyone who's interested, please jump in and we can use that as a way to take the conversation forward and then set up follow-on chats. We're doing something similar for tags and taxonomies. And async works well. Pretty much everyone is busy, so it's good to get kind of async feedback from around the world and then come up with some sort of a global picture for where we want to take the project. So thanks for all of that. We are setting up the Slack channel, and we will set up in-person discussions with people who would like to go deeper. So look out for those announcements. It is an opt-in channel, so no requirements to auto-join. But if you're interested in shaping the future of data observability on DataHub, just join that channel. Awesome. Now, and this is kind of a very interesting segue because all of the discussions that happened today were about data platform teams who have taken kind of a first step or a second step with DataHub at their company. And they have rolled it out. Some people just finished a hackathon. Some people have actually rolled it out to production and have 20 people on it. And as we showed you, you can do a little bit of analytics on the metadata itself to kind of understand how your data ecosystem looks. But what we've noticed with a lot of data platform teams, and I remember even at LinkedIn, over the last 6 years, as we kind of built out this product, we had these repeated moments of feeling like, okay, we did something, but did it actually make a difference? And so how do you get from deploying what you think is the right solution for your company to actually making sure that your entire company actually loves this solution? So that's kind of the challenge that we're setting ourselves. And I think as a community, I think we have the same challenge. We pick tools, and then now it's our job to make the entire company love the tool, because then we have succeeded. And with that, I want to hand it over to Maggie, who's been thinking about this for quite a long time as leading evangelist of DataHub at Spot Hero. So Maggie, go for it.
Awesome. So hello, everybody. I'm Maggie. I'm a senior product manager at Spot Hero, based out of Chicago, focused on data services. So everything from data engineering to data science, data analytics, and all of the complexities there. So I've been working closely with folks from the DataHub community over the past year or so. I'm a huge proponent of the tool, and just think it's, you guys are really just kicking ass. I'm just like thoroughly impressed by all the great work that's coming through. So in talking to Shirshanka and folks from Acral Data, you can go to the next slide. I wanted to kind of provide some PM support as much as I possibly can. And so one approach that we're taking is by running and facilitating a design sprint next week. For those of you who are unfamiliar with design sprints, it's really just kind of a dedicated 3 to 5 day session. We're going to focus in on 3 days to identify a big problem, map out solutions, decide on a prototype, and then rapidly iterate and build that prototype out to see if we can kind of come to a consensus of how to solve kind of like this big gritty problem. So, Shirshanka called it out that, understanding how these, really meta tools solve these bigger problems can be difficult. So we're focusing on understanding product analytics. So really understanding, how are users interacting with the tool? What are kind of like the core user funnels, how would we think about user adoption or power users, or really kind of like a successful user flow or user journey throughout the product. So we'll be tackling that next Tuesday. If you are interested in participating in this, there are two ways. One, we're looking for folks to volunteer for 30-minute expert interviews. And really the task there is we'll just be asking you about, how do you think about successful adoption or meaningful ways to track or understand user adoption within DataHub at your company. So we're looking for folks who have either implemented the tool, are thinking about implementing the tool, are admins of it, and just have perspective on product analytics there. And then otherwise we'll be scheduling, and I'm a little bit behind here in getting these things scheduled, but we'll be scheduling kind of like a final review or prototype review of what we build out, and we'll make that available to everyone to join that presentation towards the end of the week. So awesome. Feel free, if you're interested in participating, feel free to reach out to me and or Shirshanka in Slack, and we'll get you scheduled.
Yeah, and we'll make sure to meet you where your time zone is at. So
yeah,
just let us know and we'll figure it out. It doesn't have to be Tuesday morning. It can be Monday night. We'll figure it out. Awesome. Thanks so much. And we're right on time. This is it. The release is out. Check it out. Kick the tires. If there are bugs, we'll fix them and keep hacking. We'll take some more questions offline on Slack. I want to give you back your -1 minute. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
Thank you, Shirshanka.